Where was your birthplace?
South America, British Guiana. The county was New Amsterdam. British Guiana is divided into two cities, New Amsterdam and Georgetown. And of course, we had to leave New Amsterdam to come to Georgetown in order to get the boat, because that was the place where the boat comes in.
Why'd you leave? That's nice climate down here.
Yes, the climate is nice. It's a wonderful place. But it's a condition there that if you are poor, you die a poor man. There's no possibility, there's no way whereby you can better your condition. There are three classes: the down and out, the middle class, and the upper class. In whatever class you came into the world and find, that's the class you stay and die. Hardly any possibility of improvement except you leave the country. I was in the middle class, but I yet wasn't satisfied with the situation, the condition, because I thought I could do better than I was doing there. I was an iron worker. My father was the supervisor in a sugar plantation, and he took care of the means by which they bring the sugar cane from the field to the factory. It was done by what we call a punt. A punt is like a float, and we used to do the repairs to see that they don't leak. Whatever repairs that need to be done, we do it. And of course, there was no problem as far as the living was concerned, because I used to make then 12 shillings a week. And 12 shillings a week is not even $3 in American money. But yet I wasn't satisfied. I read about America and the possibility, and I thought, well, it'd be nice to get over there to see what it's all about. Well, I left Guyana at the end of 1919, December, and I got here January 1920. And I came by a boat by the name of Parima. It took us 11 days to get here. We docked at Pier 14. When I landed here, I came with a friend, and the friend had an aunt, and we both lived in a room with the aunt. And I used to pay a rent of $6 a week. And it hurt me to pay $6 a week because I never used to pay rent. And finally, after a few years, I left there and rented a room apart from them. And after living for about 7 years in the Bronx on a superintendent job, having accustomed to country life, I wasn't satisfied with the life I lived in the city. So I decided I was going to look for a farm. I wanted to buy a farm, to live on a farm, because I'm accustomed to that life. During the time I was contemplating, I heard of this Garden Heights. My mother-in-law heard about it, and she came and told me about it. I didn't want to be bothered because I heard that Long Island was a place where it's all mosquito. Mosquito and something else, and flies or something like that. And I thought Long Island was just Flushing. So I wasn't interested. Anyway, my mother-in-law, she was interested because of what she heard about this place. And she told the developer to come and see me.
Who was that?
Fife. So when he came to see me, I told him that I went to Farmingville and what I saw. He said, there's a place in Long Island. I just started development. I have a few homes there. And I would like you to come and see. So I said, I'll let you know. Well, after he was gone, I started thinking about it. I said, well, anyway, I'll go and see. Wasn't concerned because I didn't want to come to Long Island, because Long Island is just a mosquito hole, and I'm accustomed to mosquito bite from South America. So finally, I decided I'll come. When I came to Garden Heights, that was in 1932, December, I think it was. I saw the place. There were only 8 homes in Garden Heights. and we were entertained at where Mrs. Armstrong lived now. The first house was Mr. and Mrs. Rich in Hawkins Avenue. And Mrs. Brody, and she lived in Central Parkway. Then Mrs. Ellis, where Armstrong lives now. She lived in Dunbar Avenue. And Mr. and Mrs. Gray, Professor Gray was a musician. He taught music and played music. Mr. and Mrs. Gray and Mrs. Gray's sister, which was a neighbor. It was two houses there together. His house and his sister-in-law's house. Mrs. Foster and Carr. Mrs. Carr was Mrs. Foster's mother. And this house, Mattie Carter. And Mrs. Bray, where Mrs. Bray lived, there was a woman there by the name of Mrs. Morris. Those were 8 houses. This was a farm, a little farm, and that hotel there was the place where the farmer lived.
Who bought this property?
5.
Okay.
He bought it in 1927.
Who did he buy it from?
Gordon. That's why he gave. That's why he gave this place Garden Heights, because the man who owned this farm, it was a little farm. Garden Heights at that time began from Garden Avenue to Dunbar Avenue, and from Granny Road to Park Lane. You know, that was all Garden Heights. After I came, I saw the place, and I liked the place because it was quiet. And then the people that lived here, I tried to talk to them to find out what it's all about. Because at that time, you were skeptical in buying property because people swindle you so much and they advertise certain things that when you go there you find it's different. So after I got the understanding of the people who were here, they were satisfied with the place, they liked the place, and it was quiet. So I decided that I would throw in my lot. So after we went back home, I called him up and I told him that I decided to buy. At that time, he was selling lots, not acre. And I bought 40 lots. I bought the whole block.
How big was a lot?
20 by 100. Because I wanted something to raise some chickens and a cow at least, because I had in mind this is what I'm accustomed home. So I bought 40 lots. That was in 1933. I think it was January 1933. I paid him off in 1 year for the 40 lots. And the lots at that time cost $35 a lot. Now after I paid him off, he was concerned about my building because he felt that he can trust me with a mortgage. And at that time, you couldn't get mortgage because in the first place, you were told by the bank that there's no need asking. There's no electricity, there's no road, there's no water. There's nothing. And we can't give no mortgage. And you couldn't get no mortgage from anybody but Vice. And he doesn't want to bill you what you want because he figures you can't afford to pay for it. He would tell you straight out. He says, Mr. Beaton, I can't build big rooms. He said the people want big rooms, but I can't give them big rooms because they can't afford it. So I said, well, I got to have what I want. Well, finally, we decide that he is going to do the building for me. And after we made the arrangement, he gave me the price and the name of the builder, Julius Mulberg. So I said, I would like to see a house that this builder built before I started with it. So he brought me out special to have the builder show me a couple of houses that he built. And I went to Port Jefferson and I saw one, and some other place I went and saw the other one, and I was satisfied with the work I saw. It was neat. And I said, well, he'd build a house. 1934, in June, the summer, that I decided to build. Now, after he gave me the price for the house, I wanted to know whether that's the price the house would really cost me. So I got in touch with the builder, and the builder was honest enough to tell me that according to what I say, the price is $1,000 less than what he said. So I got in touch with him and I told him I'm sorry that I can't build with him, because I understood from the builder that you were asking me $1,000 more than the job actually cost. And he got mad. Why did I got in touch with the builder? Why should I? I said, why should I? It's my money. And I've got to see to it that I get what I'm paying for. So we came into a loggerhead and a misunderstanding. And I says, one thing I can tell you, you're not going to build for me for that price. But my house is going to be built by that builder. So I said, Mr. Beaton, I introduced the builder to you, and he got mad and he said, I got to get some commission because through me you know this man. And this man had no right to tell you. I said, well, that's the way the man feels. The man is an honest man. Through this man, I was able to get the mortgage through Island Coal. Island Coal, because he dealt with them. And he spoke to them, told them my situation, that I had a good job. I was in the superintendent job that I had there. And that's how I was able to get this mortgage, because I had a good job. Now, after I arranged to build this house, Fife was at variance with me, because he didn't think I was going to build without him, because he felt that I couldn't get a mortgage. So when we started to build, Malberg needed water, because he used to supply water to the 8 houses there. He had a water system that he supplied. And of course, I was willing to pay for the water that I use, but when he discovered that I am going to build independent of him, he told the man not to allow me to take water there. So that was a setback. I had to go ahead, stop the building, and get a well dug. Now, during the time when the well was dug and the man started to build, I had trouble with him. We had to get a watchman to watch the lumber, because somebody started to take the lumber away, and the builder complained to me that somebody seemed to be putting salt in the sand, because when he mixes the mortar, the thing crumbles. So anyhow, I think we did have a watchman here for a couple of weeks until things got started. And finally, he did all he could, but he couldn't prevent or hinder my progress, so he let me alone. And we were at variance for quite a few months, possibly a year or two. After I built and Mr. Fredericks got interested, he came out and he built.
Let me ask you something now, mentioning churches. At that time, there was no church.
The casino. They started a church there, and Mr. Travely used to come and have service there. That's the same area we reside, because Travely is the one that started it. The first building that was put up as a church was done by Mrs. Spence. But during that time, Travely had moved, but they were only worshiping in the basement and Granny Road. Yeah, then the next one was Beach. Mr. Beach came out, he built his own house, and then he started to solicit fund. He bought that place, solicit fund to build that, and it was the second building in Garden Heights as a church. It was started as an independent church. Oh, the next church we know of was St. Michael in Arnesia. It started by a little house just across the street there. And of course, they want to get together as a church. This minister, Janelli, he was located in Patchogue. They had a service here one Sunday. Yeah. And then speaking to him, I discovered he was concerned about getting a place to rent to keep service on Sunday. So there was a little house belonged to Mrs. Gilmore. And I contacted Mrs. Gilmore and got her to give him the place to rent. And then after they bought that piece of property when Wilson Avenue was open, and they put up the church.
And you have a lot of fruit trees and grew gardens and stuff, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we generally buy our fruit for canning. We buy it by the bushel. Bushel of pears, bushel of peaches, and bushel of apples. And we get busy and make our own applesauce and can our own peaches and pears. And then the garden supplied all the vegetables that we needed. The first year I didn't understand how to preserve them. I didn't do it right. So I got busy and learned how to do it. And over the years, I don't think we've lost a dozen bottles of anything.
What kind of trees did you plant?
We planted apples. And we planted a quince. And we planted pears, bosch, bartlett, and apricots, plums, peaches. And then we had raspberries that we freeze. We got a freezer. And we used to freeze the raspberries. And we have rhubarb. And we used to can the rhubarb. Stew it and can it down. And the string beans and the squash, we used to have a lot of squash. We didn't bother to can those because they will stay over the winter. And the okras, we used to freeze them. When he plants, I plant on top of him and dig up the stuff. So he told me if I don't stay out the garden this year, he's not going to do any planting. So I expect a nice bumper crop of everything, because everything that he touches, everything he touches. A woman met him out here last year, year before, and she pulled up her car and she said, "Mister, let me see your hand. Tell the story, Papa, because you say it's so cute."
This is, "Mister, let me see your hand." "My hand?" I said, "Well, you want to see my hand?" She said, "Let me see your hand." So she took my hand in her hand, and I said, "I just want to see what they call green thumb." So she said, "Everything looks so nice. I just want to see what a green thumb looks like."
Okay.
While I was working at Republic Aviation, I remember that the work wasn't so hard, and I thought if I could do something else in the day, because I used to work from 12 to 8. And see if I could do something else in the day to make ends meet. I'll raise chicken, because at that time there was rationing meat, and chicken was very expensive. So I thought if I invest some money, I'll make some money. So at one time I had 1,700 chicken, and I had 4 cows. And that was one of the reasons why I was anxious in getting electric, because it was laborious carting water for the chicken and the cows. So that was one of the main reasons why I tried to get electric as soon as possible so that I can have running water. I bought a tractor and a disc, because I had to provide pasture for the cow. And the place was big enough to grow grass. And so I did, and it was about, the chicken affairs was about 10 months. Because after the war, and things start to change, then chicken went down, and it didn't pay to keep it up. But I kept up the cows for about 6 years.
Do you feel if Fife did not pursue opening up this land and making it available to blacks, that it would be impossible for you at that time to live out on Long Island?
Absolutely, sure. When they discovered that he was the one that bought the property, and they discovered it only when he made the road through Wilson Avenue. And there was a whole lot of trouble and aggravation, tried to stop and tried to do, but he had everything sewed up by that time. Yeah, they threatened him. But he didn't pay it no mind. He was determined to do what he did. There's one thing with him. He had a vision. One time he told me, he says, "Mr. Beaton," he says, "my delight is, I'm looking forward to it, where I can see a little light here, a little light there, and a little light here, to know that it's in the wilderness I came, and make it a place that the poor people can live." And as a matter of fact, he was a good man. The only thing was that he charged you an exorbitant price.